well, that's weird, it's going, flow's going that way, but the line's gone that way. Well, welcome to Fishing Tail Films, and as promised and as requested, I'm going to be talking about the perch and how I like to fish for the perch, and the tactics that I'm going to discuss, that I'm going to show you some of my floats and hooks and lines and other terminal tackle. Is how I've been fishing for the perch, I would say, for the last, I'd guess, probably 12 to 15 years, because before that I was a match angler for about 40 years, so that used to obviously dominate my fishing plans, my fishing sessions, and of course putting fish in the net was what it was all about. But then I gave up match fishing so that I could concentrate on targeting the species that I really do love to catch, and that being perch is one of them, along with the roach, the crucians, the chub, the tench, the bream. And I'm going to be talking about perch, and I've had a few sort of questions and requests, so I'm going to hopefully cover some of them. Now, what I'm going to show you is not the be all and end all of how to catch perch. We all have our own favourite methods, but if I can pass on any tips or any sort of thought process that will help you put a decent perch in your net, then hopefully that will be what I'm trying to achieve. I know a few people that have not caught a £2 perch, and they've been fishing all their life and desperately would like to catch a £2 perch. Well, hopefully with the tactics and the little chat we're going to have, that might help you. Now, as we all know, there's more than one way to catch all species of fish, but we all have a favourite way of fishing for them, and in my case I love to fish for the perch using float method, and I'm going to show you some of the floats that I've been using over the years. And I do experiment around a bit, because you know, you fish all different types of waters, commercials, rivers, canals, and they all need a slightly different approach, especially with like float selection. So many years ago, when I used to fish at a place called Franfield in East Sussex, back in, was it 2012, 2013, there's actually a video up called What a Perch Session, and it really was. And I used to fish with these midi, they're actually cart floats, they're the midi, well, that one's so marked up you can't even see, but it's got on here the midi Bagum range of floats, and they're semi-loaded. You see, you've got a couple of little shots on that one, and these are great for fishing in like shallower waters, fishing up sort of tight in the margins, where I would say I've caught a majority of my perch, fishing right up close to the bank, almost touching the bank, because a lot of the bankside cover is sort of undercut, and the perch will sit under there waiting for their prey. So by presenting a bait, whether that'll be a lobworm or a prawn or maggots, then by pushing it up, you're almost tempting them to take the bait. You're dangling the bait right in front of their face, and a perch will take a bait, that's for sure. If it's there, it will take it without a doubt. That's what I found over the years. So I started off fishing with these great little floats, very sensitive, and they weren't the only floats I used to use. If I was going to use, say, a big bait, I put like on one of these sort of loafer floats, and they sort of like 5 AAA, and in fact it was using one of these that I caught a roach, a perch, 3 pounds 3 ounces, while I was filming with Kev Green many years ago for Improve Your Course Fishing TV, and also the magazine feature we were doing as well. And it may even be that float, because I do tend to keep all my floats together in like little tubes like this. I've got so many of them, and these are my perchy type floats, a few stick floats in there as well as I go along on my journeys. That normally always is in my rucksack, and I would almost say that was the float that I was using for that feature, and it was in a matter of 15 seconds. I just plonked it in, a great big worm, the biggest worm I could find in the worm bag that I had, big lobworm, hooked it, flicked it out, and it just bobbed along, went under. I counted to 2 and lifted into an absolute monster, and I had a big brace of perch that day. It was fantastic to catch it, especially on demand, because when I used to do quite a lot of magazine features, and there's nothing worse than not catching for the camera, and luckily 9 times out of 10 I did, so I was quite proud of that, and a lovely fish it was. And I've always loved a perch bobber. I think most anglers that like to fish traditional methods love a perch bobber. These are made by Andy Cowdrey of Black Bottom Floats, and beautifully made. And Andy's actually made me, I asked him if he could make me some with a much longer tip, so that if I'm going to fish a real big bait, or maybe a tiny little live bait, then if I have too short a tip, it'll probably sink too low, and obviously if the fish is moving about a bit, then I don't want it to keep disappearing out of sight. I want at least a nice big float, because believe you me, I know a lot of people say about the sensitivity side of it. Well, you can say that about all fish. Sometimes they're going to be very, very finicky. Perch, carp, even all sort of species. But when they're on it, they will slam a bait, and they won't mess about. They'll just have it, gulp it down, and it'll be gone. I've seen a roach sort of that big swallowed right the way down in a matter of about 20 seconds from putting it out. So they weren't messing around then, and there was no need for any sensitivity then, although trying to fish as sensitive as you can will always increase your bite. So they're the perch bobbers, and I've actually got a perch bobber that is looking a bit worn, battered, paint's come off, and this is from my school days. And I used to have a red one which I lost up in a tree many years ago, which wasn't great, but I managed to hang on to this one, and every now and then I'm brave enough to use it, because I do get a bit sentimental about some of my floats, and I don't like losing them because they hold so many memories. So they're the floats I like to use. What about the hooks? Actually, before I go on to the hooks, there is some other floats that I do use, and I've been very successful with them. I've used them on a couple of my videos down at Furnace Brook and also Hordle Lakes, and that's the Corum loaded blobs. They slide up and down the line nice and easily. They're 3 gram, so they're quite chunky, and you can use a big bait with them, and I'm really impressed with them. Very sensitive, and they do show up the baits very well, and to see when that sort of bobs up and down, you get like the little ripples effect, and it's quite exciting knowing that this could be a big old perch waiting to pull that right under. Right, let's go on to the hooks. Now when it comes down to fishing with hooks, the hook size is really determined by what size bait I'm going to be using. If I'm going to be using like a large prawn or a jumbo prawn or a great big lobworm, then I might as well up the size of the hook, and I'll be quite happy using a size 6, a size 8, a size 4 if need be. And the main patterns I tend to use is the sort of Drennan Super Specialist. In this case it's microbarbed. That's a super specialist hook. The Camasan B983, which again, it's a wide gape. I do tend to fish more wide gape hooks. And then you've got the all-rounder, Corum all-rounder. Again, a very strong hook. If I can get away with using a microbarb, then I will, if the fishery allows it more, and more fisheries tend to be going back to sort of microbarbs, but they all do these in a barbless range as well, and quite often I'll tip the bait with 1 or maybe 2 red maggots as well, because with that little bit of movement that does attract the perch to sort of slam in on the bait as well. So they're the sort of hooks I like to use: the Drennan, the Camasan, the Corum. So we've chatted about the floats, the hooks. Now line is the next thing. Now if I'm doing a hook to nylon, then I tend to use the sort of like a fluorocarbon, like the Drennan Supplex range, and fluorocarbon is almost invisible. So this goes from 3.3 up to sort of £10. It wouldn't bother me. If I'm fishing for the perch, 3.3, I think they do a 4.4. That's quite adequate. Main line would be, I like to use the Gardner Hydroflow line, £4 main line. And these are 300 metre spool, so it's pretty good. And I tend to, if I can, I use the low vis green colour, you can see there. Very strong line, excellent line. It's never let me down, and I've been fishing this for many, many years. So that's the sort of main line I use, and then I've got my rod here to show you. Rod and reel. It's already set up. I'll have one with a perch bobber set up, and in this case it's got a Corum blob on it, and I band them together so they're all ready to go. They'll fit nicely in my quiver bag. I use the Corum Transition quiver bag, and also the rucksack. I like to match it up as much as I can. And rod wise, it's the Derwent Valley 11-foot Specialist. These are I use a pair of these 11-foot, and they're brilliant. They really are. They've got a nice soft tip on them. They're 3/4 ounce test curve, so they're very, very light. And when you're playing a fish, especially a big perch, because they've got bony mouths, it's nice to have a fairly soft tip, because if it's too stiff, too abrasive, and you've hooked them in the lip, there's a good chance you could pop the hook out. But with having a little bit of a cushion in the tip, nice soft tip, you can sort of lean into it a little bit, and the hook, you get a better hook hold, especially if you've hooked them anywhere in the bony part of the mouth. Of course, if they've swallowed the bait or it's inside the mouth, then you're probably going to be okay no matter what sort of test curve rod you're using. Reel wise, my favourite's the Shimano Stradix. They are such a great reel. I've had these a long while, and every now and then I send them off to Philindra to service them. And like I say, I've had these over 12 years now, and they're still going strong. Very popular reel. Bit pricey, you know. I mean, you can get cheaper reels if you want, but you know, if you can sort of, I suppose, spend as much as you possibly can, then you know they're gonna last. I mean, you know, I probably paid at the time around about £100 for that reel all them years ago. But I'm still using it. It's 12 years old, so I've had more than my money's worth out of the reels. You know, Shimano, Dower, great sort of make of reel. Lots of ball bearings in them, nice and smooth running, and it's very important to me. I've also got a pair of Corum reels as well that I'll talk about in a little while when I'm sort of light ledgering for the perch as well, but I'll come to that a bit later. So that's the rod, the reel, the floats, the hooks, the line. It's not a lot more to talk about as far as terminal tackle wise, but like everything in fishing, the most important thing is the baits and the feeding and the presentation. So let's talk about that. So when I've plumbed the depth, I always like to plumb the depth, and I move the plummet around because I'm trying to find a little bit of a flat spot, especially if I'm fishing up tight to the margins, because sometimes there can be a bit of a slope and then it then drops away. So if you go straight in and feed, then your feed could sort of roll down, move down the slope, and you're still fishing at the top of it. And a lot of fish move down the slope. So what I tend to do is plumb around a bit until I try and find a flat spot. And if that flat spot happens to be down the bottom end of the slope, then that's where I'll fish. Because I think that obviously if that's where the bait, the loose feed, is going to go, then there's no point fishing away from it. So that's a good little tip. Plumb around. If you can find a nice flat spot, then at least you know that when you put your feed out, you're going to be fishing right over where your main feed is. And on a lot of commercials and sort of natural lakes, you can find lots of sort of flat spots as well. So that's a good thing to look out for. And have a plumb around. I normally plumb around to the left of the swim, to the right, and also location. Obviously, perch, I tend to look for swims where there's lots of margin cover, maybe a tree overhanging, some lily pads where some lily pads have been. Obviously, fishing in the winter, the pads would have died off, but the roots will still be there. And they're the areas that I tend to look for when I'm targeting sort of specimen size perch. And because it's a bit of cover, and the silverfish, if they're there, then the perch won't be far away. So feeding wise, I tend to mostly feed via a pole cut, which is from mostly my match days. And so I'll chop up some chopped worm, maybe some dendras or some lobs, and also some prawns as well. I'll chop that up, and sometimes I add a little bit of Predator Plus liquid, a bit of worm liquid. Krill is another good attractant as well. You can get krill powder, and you can also get krill liquid as well. And they give off a nice scent, a bit of colour as well. We all know that perch love a bit of red, so red maggots. I tend to use red maggots over white. There is on the odd occasion I use white. If the water is really coloured, I'll maybe bring half a pint of white maggot with me as well. You don't really need lots of maggots as such, because you're not going to feed too much. Just trickle in the feed. And while I'm fishing, I'm always flicking out maggots as well over the top, to try and see if it attract the silverfish to chase about. And then if the perch see some action going on, they'll move in on it as well, and then hopefully they'll find your lobworm and your prawn. So that's how I tend to feed, and my approach to feeding, and my approach to trying to find where the where the perch are going to be by using lobworms and prawn as main hook baits. So there you go. That's my kind of feelings towards the baits and feeding. Feeding over where I want to be fishing. So try and find a flat spot if you can. 9 times out of 10 you will. Hopefully it'll be near a bit of margin cover, roots, that sort of thing. Undercut banks is a great place where a perch will sit. Big perch as well. They'll sit there. I've caught so many decent perch right up tight. It's incredible. You wouldn't think that they'd be there, but they do. They just sit there and wait. And they're waiting for like a roach or a small minnow, gudgeon to come along, and they'll slam the bait. Now, as an angler of many years, there's always plenty of sort of memories and stories to share. Now, perch are not the only predator, of course they're not. You've got zander and pike, and it's the pike that I want to tell a little story about. And when I was 17, many moons ago, I went fishing with my dad and a schoolmate of mine, and we went to Waltham Abbey in Essex on the River Lee. There was like a canal system, and it was one of the places, along with Wanstead Park in Essex or East London, was a place that I kind of really feel that's where I learned how to fish. On the River Lee system, Chesham, Broxbourne, all them sort of places, Waltham Abbey being one of the main places. And on this particular day, it was on a Saturday, it was very cold. We used to get really cold winters back in the 70s. This was 1977, and it was January, and we went to fish the canal, but when we got there it was frozen solid, and there was no way that we were going to break through the ice. It was solid as a rock. So disappointed, because I used to love fishing for the gudgeon and small roach and all that, just fish for bites really. I used to just love seeing that float go under. I still do, and we all do, don't we? Anyway, so luckily at Waltham Abbey, because there was a pub there called the Old English Gentleman. I don't think it's there anymore. I think it was all knocked down for redevelopment, but it was right by the bridge. And across the other side was the Lee Relief Channel, which flowed quite hard. It towed a bit, so that meant it hadn't frozen over. So we could at least get a day's fishing in, because I was living in Forest Gate at the time, and we drove to Waltham Abbey, parked up, discovered the canal frozen, and then we went and fished the Relief Channel. Now I was using a Milborough rod, and I used to, it's before really the quiver tip rods come out as they are now, or as they have been for the last 20 odd years or so. So in the rods it used to have like a screw-in attachment, so you could float fish with it, get a little, there used to be like little quiver tip sections with a thread in it, and the thread used to screw in to the tip of the rod, and you could like then fish like quiver tip style. And so I set up for that, and I was going to just mainly fish for some gudgeon, some roach, got maggots, just, you know, small hook. I was using a size 20 hook, 2 pound line. I used to fish really light, because remember I was going to fish the canal. I had it in my head, the finer you fish, the more bites you're going to get. And I was sort of kind of just coming into my match fishing days, so these were like practice sessions for when I started my club fishing, and that moved on to the open circuit and then team fishing. So I was fishing a little tiny Arsley bomb, probably a towel about that long. I had probably a BB shot that was stopping the Arsley bomb from sliding all the way down to the hook. It's very simple and works even today really. And probably a trace about that long, 2 pound trace, 2 pound main line, and I was flicking it out, and it was holding bottom, and I was catching like little gudgeon, little roach, that sort of thing. I was getting bites, you know. I was really lucky to even be fishing, let alone catching fish. And I must have turned my head for a second, and when I come back, the rod just sort of slid off the rod rest. So I picked it up, adjusted my rod stick because it was a little bit loose. I thought it'd like maybe twisted and the rod slid off. Picked it up, put the rod back on it, and it just pulled it straight off again. And I think, what's going on? Anyway, it happened again, and then I sort of thought, this ain't right. Why is it doing that? And as I've sort of lifted into it, it's solid at the other end. So I'm thinking, well, what's all this about, you know? And I'm sort of, and there was a stick on the other side, and I'm looking at that, and I've looked up, and I'm following my line all the way down across, and I can see my line moving slightly downstream, and it moved, upstream from the flow, and it moved past the stick. So I'm thinking, well that's weird. Flow's going that way, but the line's gone that way. And I'm thinking maybe I've hooked like a bit of a log, and it's sort of doing that. And I think, well, it's moving, something's on here. And I sort of pull in gently. And then like my dad come down. What's that? I said, I think I've got something on. I said, but it's not doing anything. It's just holding bottom, and I can't work out what it is. And 20 minutes had gone. Still the same scenario. By now, it had moved probably about sort of 20-30 foot to the right. So I've had to get up the bank and walk along with it. But there was no thumping or anything like that. It was just moving really slowly. And then it wasn't until it stopped and then started coming back the other way, then I realised I was connected with something quite big. And I think, wow, there's a fish on here. And then all of a sudden I felt a little, and that was about after 25 minutes. So I'm reeling in slowly, and I think whatever I was connected with had no idea that I was on the other end of it, because it was just, it wasn't like I couldn't bully it because I was only using 2 pound line, and I was just easing back slowly, and 40 minutes went past, and by now there was a little bit of a gathering, and a Thames water bailiff come along, And he said, what you got on there? And I told him, like I said, I'm on a £2 line, a size 20 hook, double maggot. I haven't got a clue what I'm on, what I've got on. Maybe it's a pike, I don't know. And so 45 minutes had gone, and by now it had moved. It was almost under me rod tip. I'm up on the bank. My dad's below me with a landing net, a little net, like a sort of 20-inch net pan. And I said, right, I'm going to go for it. I said, because my arm's killing me now. I couldn't feel my arm at all. And I just sort of supported my elbow. And I just started lifting up slowly. I said, well, it's coming up, whatever it is, really slowly. And then just like a submarine, up come this massive pike. It was huge. And then I think it was then that it must have caught the fact that there was something going on. And he dived down. I'm thinking, oh no, he's going to come up, he's going to come up. And then the Thames water baby said, well, you're not going to net it in that net pan. He ran back to his car and got a big carp specie net out, come running back, screwed it onto the bank stick that the landing net handle that my dad was on. So he's sitting there with a much bigger net now. I said, right, I'm gonna this is gonna be the only chance we're gonna get. I'm gonna lift it up slowly, and up it come, and my dad just slipped the net underneath it and netted the fish. And as I put my rod down, this almighty pain in my arm, because it was actually a dead arm. I couldn't feel my fingers, I couldn't feel my hands, nothing. And there was this great big monster pike. The Thames water bailiff brought his scales down, and it weighed at 26 pounds 6 ounces. Unbelievable. And it's obviously something that I will never forget. The Angling Times said it was an angling miracle, and I guess kind of it was. It felt like it. And the Angler's Mail said it was a giant's downfall, and an incredible day. And I've never caught a pike anywhere near it since, and I've fished for them. I've had some low doubles and smaller jacks and stuff like that, but maybe I should just use £2 line, a size 20 hook, and double red maggot. Incredible day, something I'll never forget. And people were gobsmacked. You know, they didn't even think that pike like that even existed, but they did. As soon as I got it on the bank, the hook was in like the scissors, and it just popped out. So I think it was only the tension of the fight that actually kept the hook in place. Incredible. And what a day that was. 17. Wow, a long while ago. Well, I hope I haven't bored you too much with my perch talk, my pike story, but hopefully I've gone through a few things that will help some of you with your perch fishing trips. I know there's been a couple of carp anglers that have seen me videos and says, I'm going to go out and fish for perch, watching your videos. Looks like a lot of great fun. Can you sort of give me a few little tips and pointers and stuff? So that's what this sort of video is all about. Hopefully you've gained something out of it. If there's anything else that you want to know, please in the comments below, just comment below, and if I can answer it I will. So there you go. So that's my view on how I like to catch perch. There is another method that I like to use, and that's like a light little ledger link that I use. And so I use the Coram all-rounder rod in 11-foot version. I did try to get hold of a couple of 10s, but I don't make them anymore. I use something like a little Drennan run rig kit. I'll make another video on this another time. And I'll tend to use the Drennan Coram reflow feeder line. It sinks really fast. It's a very supple line. I tend to use it in £6. Used it the other day and caught a nice chub on it down the river on this sort of setup as well. But I'll maybe save that for another day. But anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this little video of fishing tail films. I shall be out fishing before Christmas, and I shall be uploading the video. Be like a festive episode, I guess you could call it. If you're out at all over the weekend and before Christmas and during Christmas and after, have a fantastic time. Let me know how you get on, and I'll see you again very, very soon on Fishing Tail Films. Please give it a like, because it helps to for YouTube to push it out there. If I see there's plenty of interaction and comments and stuff like that. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. It's free to do. You just need an email address. And I've really been pleased how this year's gone, subscribers wise. I was hoping to reach 2,000. I've gone way over that now, which is brilliant, and I can't thank everyone enough for your support. Anyway, enough waffling for me. I'll see you soon by the bankside, and I'm looking forward to it, and I'll see you soon. Take care and tight lines.